Hello and welcome to the Temple Mount Podcast. My name is Shogun, and joining me today is my good friend Neirum. We are going to discuss all kinds of things: science fiction, ancient mythology, ancient rituals, and a book that a friend of his wrote, which we'll get into momentarily. Just make sure you find us on the Temple Mount Discord server and the Temple Mount YouTube and BitChute podcast. That being said, welcome Neirum. Thank you for joining me. How are you today, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you. So, maybe the place we should start is, do you want to tell us a little bit about the book? The name of the book, I think, was The Alchemy of the Psyche, or The Psyche of Alchemy. Was that it?
Yes. Yeah, the mythic quest for transformation. If I had to, put it in a nutshell, me and my group of friends have just been kind of concerned with the fall of great civilizations like Egypt, Greece, Rome. We feel like our own world is kind of falling apart. So my friend, he did a very comprehensive analysis of human history, beliefs, religions, rituals, and just kind of tracked that the more people were involved with rituals, the more they were grounded to nature, the longer the civilization lasted. And we seem to be so ungrounded, lost, turned around, and confused. We really set out to seek some answers, wisdom in those rituals, in those grounding practices, to try and keep people, on the straight and narrow.
Right. So the idea is that, holding to ancient traditions, rituals, and customs is something that keeps civilization strong, and losing them is one of the signs of when civilizations start to decline. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, they don't have to be traditional, because people are probably going to have to create new rituals that mean something to themselves, some individuated reason that you need to integrate something that's, unbalancing you, for lack of a better term.
Right. So were you looking at particular mythologies, like Celtic mythologies and Egyptian mythologies, or
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah. In particular, this Choreos ritual. Um, are you familiar with anything
No,
like
I've
that?
never heard of that before. It sounds interesting. What is that?
Okay. These Choreos rituals were designed to help people reconnect with nature and each other in the form of, it would look like a really wild party, I guess, but it's not. There's a lot going on there that helps people integrate into the collective, the culture, the group, the tribe, whatever words you want to use here. Um, I've got part of this book pulled up here, and I'll just go to that chapter real quick, because I don't want to say the wrong thing here. Okay, one. Okay. The Choreos as a collective and ritualistic expression of youthful energy and vitality shares resonances with Wotan, or Odin's untamed wild aspects. Both are manifestations of the unconscious, forces that surge through society, seeking outlets for expression. So, this Choreos ritual served as a pressure release valve for society, where it was a stabilizing force that helped people orient themselves toward common goals. And there's just a total lack of that. You go into most churches, it's like you sit and you listen to somebody. Some of them sing, some of them do this and that, but it's not a lot of people interacting, doing games, learning how to work together. And that's what these Choreos rituals did. Um, It was widespread in various Indo-European contexts. During certain periods, these groups would venture into the wilderness to hunt and raid other communities, while in the remaining time, they were tasked with defending their own society. And by the way, my friend's name that wrote this book, his name is Bessarius. And I'll provide a link here for you, in case anybody wants to buy it. So the main thing here is we don't have these traditional rituals or any rituals that we've invented. We're just kind of wildly doing silly things on the internet to get attention, and somehow that still makes us feel alone, detached, listless. Like, what are we supposed to do? What meaning do we have in our lives? You kind of can gain that meaning through community, through finding a role or a job or something that you're good at that other people need you to do. And those opportunities are just gone. Neighbors hardly talk to each other. And this has been in the process for probably 100 years. Uh, I'd say in the 1800s, people had more of a handle on this type of thing. You know, they interacted with each other on a regular basis. They did have, you know, like dances. They had like get-togethers, things that they would do that would be fun. So they didn't go crazy. And we have all this stuff to do, and it's just not scratching that itch. Um,
Right.
we just looked into the past on what did people do before, and it's really offering a scaffolding to people for people to choose your own adventure. Cherry pick these ideas, you know, figure out your own tool set that you might want to use to help yourself. Because, you know, when you get into telling people specifically what they should do, it starts like a religion or a cult or something. So, you know, that's for people to make up their own mind and decide how they want to interpret the past on what got humanity to the point it is now, to try and, you know, get some sort of grappling hook and piece ourselves back together here is really the goal of all the podcast work we've done, and the book that he wrote. He just had all these notes. He's really good at, you know, reading through 3 or 4 books, you know, in a week and picking out all this information. And he just distilled a lot of stuff based upon a lot of the work of Carl Jung too. You know, these archetypes. What are these things at play here in these rituals? And what is it nourishing inside of our souls that enabled these people to live through far harsher conditions? I mean, they were in survival mode, dude. You were lucky to make it to 30. And these rituals helped them cope with that. So I definitely think there's a lot of credence to getting these things back in order so that it soothes some of these wounds that people have, you know, so people can maybe try and heal from it.
So the idea that these rituals and this spirituality is sort of a core part of how people have survived really difficult times in the past and got through, you know, Ice Age and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've talked also, and first of all, what is the name of your podcast or the podcast that you've been discussing those things on, just so people can find it if they...
Me and him have like switched back and forth on each other's podcast. His podcast name is The Moment
Okay.
Podcast, The Moment, and mine is Boom Shroom. I got a much more loose sort of talk show vibe, and he's got a much more focused thought stream on these particular topics. So he's got a more laser focused kind of stream, and on my podcast, I kind of jump around everywhere with different ideas, trying to connect this thing into that thing and seeing if there's any sort of vibe there that works.
And you guys have talked a lot, I think, about sort of the idea that the divine feminine has been lost as well, right? Like the idea
Yes.
that there used to be a wife, or that God used to be part of like a family unit.
Yeah. Yeah, we started this very controversial podcast series called "Where is God's Wife?" You know, where's the feminine aspect in Abrahamic religions? You know, which is the religion that dominates the West. What is up with that? You know, why is there a Father, Son, and a Holy Ghost? Like, is she dead? Is that the ghost? What's going on here exactly? So, again, we reached way back into the past, like Proto-Indo-European stuff, man. And there's always this feminine, like God always has a wife. You know, this godlike figure. There's a feminine godlike figure with superpowers. She can throw lightning bolts and stuff too. Like it's a goddess. And then they were able to have kids, and it created this family dynamic and model that we could adopt and mirror. You know, we could, that was the point, you know, of the gods to like, this is the best behavior. This is something to aim for. This is something to strive for. It's achievable. You can try. Maybe it's not going to be as perfect as the gods, but it's an example. And so over time, the wife disappears. The woman's gone. The family aspect is gone. And then you get this kind of, strange story that is not relatable to humanity. There's a disconnect, for a lot of people. I think that's why a lot of people just feel disconnected. I also feel like that's directly responsible for the resentment in women and the rise of feminism and the difficulty of marriage now and the difficulty of having a family. We just don't know how to operate in a male female dynamic to create children anymore. So that's why I got on to, where's God's wife? That might help, to having a feminine example. Instead of a human like Mother Mary, like a goddess, like somebody with this equal power to the masculine figure, and they need each other. They have to be married. They have to get along. Otherwise, the earth doesn't work out. We don't have this example to go by. We're very lost. My friend, what spurred this on really is me and my friend. We were hanging out real late at night, talking on the phone, and just playing with these ideas, not really knowing what we're talking about, just playing with these ideas. And then he said, man, if it's Mother Earth and Father Sky, because we were talking about the Native American Dinah, and they believe, the mother is the earth and the father is in the sky. And he said, dude, it feels like we're in the middle of a cosmic custody battle. And, God is like, yeah, that she's, such a so-and-so or something or another. She's got horns and, these goat feet, and she's awful, and she lives down there under the earth and fire. Like, we're in the middle of this cosmic custody battle between mom and dad, and it's like tearing people's minds apart. And I thought that was such an intriguing premise, and I just went with it and found out, there was this woman, there was this wife in the past, and, we got rid of her. So, yeah, that's why I went down that rabbit hole.
Are you talking, when you say there was a wife, are you talking about the character Asherah, or
No, I'm just talking about, like Odin and Freya, like old religions. Like there was all these women in the old religions. Like Hinduism is Kali. Like there's a chick in there. There's these women, these goddesses everywhere in the old belief systems, and they're gone now. We got rid of them all. And I think that causes an imbalance to where it'll always be chaos because it's a shadow. That's what Carl Jung talked about, is if you deny things and you ignore things and you repress things and you act like it doesn't exist and it's not there, the shadow grows in resentment, and then it'll rebel and it will destroy. And that's the war between, heaven and hell, metaphorically. The Mother Earth, the Father Sky, this war. There doesn't need to be a war. They need to, get along, because they used to be married. Anyway, that's the long and short of it.
Do you have any theory about when or why the cosmic divorce happened in the first place?
We go really deep into it in episode 2 of Where's God's Wife, and that's on the Moment podcast on my friend's channel. But yeah, it happened, around 2,000, 3,000 years ago, when all of the pagan religions, the Roman religions, the Egyptians, they just kind of fell. All these great empires just started crumbling and falling apart around that same 500,000 year period of time. And I think that's interesting because we could get into some crazy Graham Hancock stuff about how old is civilization, how long have people been here, but that's probably another topic for another time. But these civilizations lasted for so long, and all of a sudden they just started falling apart. They stopped believing in these things. They stopped embodying the story. They stopped doing their own version of Koryos rituals in favor of monotheism. That's really what dominated everything, monotheism. Why? Simplification. Humans are always trying to simplify things, make it as streamlined as possible. And, I know what I'm saying is probably super offensive to everybody, but I'm just trying to look at it from a mechanical perspective. Like if the brain is a machine and it had this gearbox in here before that made us do really great things like pyramids and aqueducts and, you know, all these empires, and we take some machinery out that was resulting in that culture, resulting in that strength, those passions, that ability to express themselves with these advanced tools and architecture. So maybe they thought, we need to remove some of these parts and make the it simpler, the culture simpler. And if, you know, people are like, hey, you know, what about this? What about that? You know, heresy, you know, shut up. I don't know, but that's what happened. It also, you know, resulted in the world we live in now, you know, with plumbing, heating and cooling, computers, the internet itself, the way we're talking to each other now. But perhaps it was a necessary phase or whatever. I don't know, but where we're at now, I just feel like a lot of people are very sick. They're lost. They don't know what's going on, and I feel like there's an answer or two in the past to try and put some of that machinery back in there and see if that helps. Like, will that help? Is that enough? I honestly don't know. I don't know. It's a hope, though. I hope it's helpful.
So just to make it at a personal level, do you practice any kind of rituals or
Yes.
that you find helpful in your own life?
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you an example of one. And these rituals are just unique, individual to you. It's not going to make any sense to somebody else. They're going to be like, "That's weird," but maybe I got another thing that is weird about me that I want to do. So I do this thing called the heart song ritual. I go out into the woods and I walk at this place. You know, there's waterfalls everywhere where I live in the mountains. So there's this particular place I like to walk with the waterfalls. And dude, I'll just start singing a song like I'm in a fucking Disney movie. Like I just don't care anymore. I'm just singing in the forest with nature, and all these birds are flying around, and I'm just really vibing with that. And the lyrics, like they're just whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm going through, I don't know. It's clunky at first. It sounds bad. I'm like, what am I doing? I sound awful. It doesn't matter. There's nobody out here. So I just keep singing. And after about 5-10 minutes of acting like a fool, something really amazing starts coming out of my heart. Like I feel this energy connection from my heart to my voice leaving my body, and it's like a stress reliever, or I'm sorting my thoughts out, I'm thinking about it in a more critical manner, I'm chilling out, and I'm connecting my heart and my mind. I'm making a bridge between the two, because I guess in my headcanon, singing is like a bridge between your feeling and your intelligence. You know, song, music is like a really good way to line up all your chakras, so to speak. That's not really how I view it, but for lack of a better term. So the heart song ritual is what I do if I feel like I'm not grounded and connected, and that's just, you know, and people can go out and sing a song, or they can not sing a song, or they can not even go outside at all. It doesn't matter. But the point is that you have something that you have a goal. You're fucked up inside. You feel like your chest is a pretzel, and you want to unbind those knots and help focus to open up a better future for yourself. That's the point of these rituals.
I like that. Yeah, makes sense. So we're gonna open up for discussion, but also I thought, I mean, they're kind of two different subjects, but I thought it's interesting. We've been talking about the past. We've also been talking a lot recently about science fiction and the future. And you were talking in particular about a particular book series that I hadn't heard about before. I believe it was called The First and Second Men, or The Second and Third Men, something along
Yeah,
those
The
lines.
Last and First Men by Olaf Stapledon.
Last and First Men by Olaf Stapledon. So
Yeah.
is that something you've been reading recently, or?
I read it years ago. I read it again and leaf through it every year. You know, it's just such a profound book. The premise is this guy is hanging out in his study, like writing something, and he all of a sudden he hears this voice in his head, and it's like, I am a human a million years in the future. I'm here to help you. And he's like, what? Get out of here. He's like, nah, dude, start writing everything down that I say to you. And he said that's how he wrote this book. And I'm like, whoa, this is already a trip. Like, what are you talking about? So it starts, with telling the history of humanity from now to a million years in the future. And we evolve into these different strange forms, and we turn into different forms of consciousness. And so many things happen to us. Like, it's just unreal. Like, when we get into space and figure out rockets, all this super strange, unexpected stuff happens, and we change and we keep going because inside we're still human. Like, our consciousness, our soul, I think was what he was trying to convey, is still the same, striving to figure out what's going on. What are we doing here? Let's make a little music about it while we're figuring it out. So it's a really
Right.
wonderful. Yeah.
And you said that one of the things that was interesting about that is that they actually sort of predicted a lot of things that seem accurate, either
Mhm.
from the recent past or the near future. So, can you give us that TLDR
Yeah,
again?
yeah, he predicted World War II, and maybe at the time that was obvious. People were like, "Yeah, something's gonna fucking go down, guys." Because I think other authors kind of wrote and predicted that, but it talked about how everybody's going to be able to communicate with each other, like instantly. These technologies that were just at its infancy. This guy was just like, culture is going to radically change. Everything's going to be so different, and then eventually humanity invents like this CRISPR virus, and they start modifying their genome like, the engineers in Prometheus. They just do this next level shit, and they make themselves super advanced and intelligent, and they can see all these different spectrums of light with their eyeballs, and they can float around, and they're like almost like Super Saiyans. And so then they get out into space, and that's when it gets into third gear. Like, all this crazy shit happens. These aliens in this book feel genuinely alien. Like, they're just so weird. The strangest things that they encounter that I've never seen in like media or read in a book, except maybe in Lovecraft. But this guy's aliens were somehow even stranger, and the different iterations that humanity became. So it was an interesting meditation on, who are we? Where have we been? Where are we going? And I love it for the same reason that I've been working on all this stuff about what's with the rise and fall of civilization. What's going? Can you stabilize it? Is that a stupid effort? Should I just not worry about it? But for some reason, I'm just all into it. Why does this happen? What's going on?
And just for context, you said that the author actually claims that the books are not fiction, that they are actually some kind of channeled work, right?
Yeah, that's what he says in the book. Now, is that part of the book? Like the character that he wrote? I don't know. Uh, but I thought it was a really interesting way to start a book, man. It got me hooked. That's a hell of a hook, man. In the
Right.
author world, that's what they call it. At the beginning, you got to hook them, man. And I was hooked, bro. And I was like, what in the fuck are you talking about, dude? And I read the whole thing front to back, and it has a sequel called Star Maker. And this is after humanity is gone, after the last men die out. And it's talking about who makes the stars. And then that just gets even. It's a DMT trip, bro. Like, it is just dealing with billions and trillions of years of a time scale and what's going on in these different alien races that like start a little federation, and then they find like ruins of humanity, and they're like, I wonder what they were about. And it's like, whoa, dude,
And
it's
you said,
crazy.
in addition to the different types of humans that evolve, there's also aliens that are not human, right?
Right. Yeah, they meet these aliens on Venus, Mars, I think on the moons of Jupiter. Like, yeah, there's aliens throughout the solar system in the beginning of the space. And in this series, humans never make it out of the solar system. We make it as far as Neptune because we keep rising and falling and rising and falling and changing our DNA, and our biology changes and our thoughts change. At one stage, I think it was the seventh men, they became like H.R. Giger biomechanoid scorn people. Like, they were just and they had like a religion like Cenobites, like they would torture things to like bring out psychic energy and look into other dimensions, and that fucked us up for a real long time. It was basically like chaos cults, like from Warhammer 40K. We just turned up straight fucking evil, doing really messed up shit. But eventually, the creations of those things were like so empathetic that they like freed themselves and then helped people not be crazy anymore, like torturing shit and get away from chaos. So then they changed into other things slowly because they became nicer. But that was crazy. Just how a whole psychology and culture of humanity can potentially change with the introduction of technology, AI, cybernetics, CRISPR viruses, resequencing the genome. We're going to do this stuff. It's happening. What's it going to be? What's it going to look like? And this guy went there back in the 20s. He was thinking about this shit 100 years ago.
Right. Wow. And how many books are in that series approximately? Or
in that particular series, it's 2. It's Last and First Men and Star Maker.
Okay.
And he's wrote a bunch of other sci-fi books. He wrote this super depressing book about a dog named Sirius that gains human consciousness. Like, don't read that unless you're like a sadist. It's a sad book.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, but he also wrote Odd John, and that's about an alien that visits Earth. That's a really good book. That's not going to traumatize you. So he's got a bunch of other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head.
Cool.
He's a British author.
I'll definitely check that out, and that sounds interesting. Sounds like some interesting themes and concepts there. Was there anything else you wanted to get into before we open it up for maybe audience?
I could just go on and on and on. So
yeah, anything
unless
at
you
all
got
you want to
anything
get
to
into?
say, no, I just this has been a hell of a journey with me and my friends. I'm just so grateful that we could weave this together and catch all these ripe fruits from the past. It's just been a fascinating journey talking about it with all these different people. The most interesting thing that I'd like to highlight is how the women light up when I talk about it. And they talk about like, yeah, I feel like that's a big missing component. And so that's a perspective that people don't really look at and talk about, like addressing the issue. What is the issue? What is going on? Why can't people get married anymore? And it could just be as simple as introducing a goddess, or an example of interaction between a masculine and feminine cosmic entities or gods to fix a lot of shit. And if that, if we could figure that out and that's real, that would be amazing, I think. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I won't. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about all this stuff?
Well, I do. Because I know I've thought about that exact thing for a long time about the feminine aspect, right? Because I remember learning at one point, and I even pray. When I pray, I don't say father, I say mother, father, right? Because I believe it's both energies, really, right? And so I've also been, well, because of the fact that I've wondered about that for a long time, and I did some research on my own, I started learning that there's a lot of people that believe that we're entering an age now more where that feminine aspect of our divine is like re-emerging. What do you think about that? Like, do you know of anything along those lines?
Yeah, I feel like it's in full rebellion. It's in full rebellion, and I can't say that I blame women. There needs to be an open conversation about what to do about it. That's not what's happening. It's a war. Look at, if you've ever seen like a divorce court or any, it's brutal. It's just ripping humanity itself apart. Because when we don't have a good family that we come from and people that make sense halfway, and we're really fucked, because we live a lot longer than like 26. like 500 years ago. Like we just dropped off like flies. We live a lot longer, so we have to reconnoiter our sort of day-to-day rituals that just aren't working for us. It's just not working. Like if it was working, we wouldn't be all on antidepressants. Men wouldn't be blowing their brains out, all the time. Like there's a serious mental health crisis going on in the West. It's so bad. It's so bad. People don't want to talk about it, but it's really a problem we gotta face.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. And we could probably do a whole additional podcast and get into more about the issues you see with society and that kind of thing. And hopefully we'll do that. But did anyone else have a question or comment for Neirum?
Yeah, Neirum, did you ever see
Never.
that when you were talking about the first and last men, and you were talking about all this crazy stuff that happens when they go to space and how they, change? Have you ever heard the McKenna bit where he's like having this dialogue with the mushroom, and he asks it something like, why is things so crazy, right? And
Give
it
me the
says to
plan
him
for
like,
a hyperspace engine. Yeah. Like how do
well,
we
no,
do it?
but no, what it says to him is like he's asking it why society is so nuts and why everything seems to be falling apart, and the thing says to him, this is what it looks like when a species prepares to ascend to the stars. Oceans will boil,
Yeah.
cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Joe Rogan has been saying for 15 years now, is humanity is like a cocoon in a cocoon, and we're about to turn into a butterfly and fly, baby. And what we all are in right now, like our homes, this HVAC systems, the internet, all the food from Walmart, we're in a cocoon forming ourselves into something else. And it's going to be a bunch of different things. It's not going to be one thing. And that's what the singularity that people keep going on and on and on about is like, that's what it's going to look like. We're going to be these different people, and we still got to figure out like how to maintain our consciousness and embody a body. We can't abandon our bodies. People that download their brains into some AI generated server, they're going to go nuts. They're going to become like rogue AIs you got to shut off or something. You have to stay in your body. And that's a lot of what my friend's book is about, the alchemy of the psyche, and what the purpose of these rituals are. Is we're very disembodied right now, and we don't want to live anymore. Like we're sad. So
It's like in Dune, right? Is like they have the Butlerian Jihad, and then because they get rid of computers, humans have to evolve to do what computers used to do. So you have like the Mentats, who are like just human calculators, and then you have like, the Bene Gesserit, who are like social like organizers and stuff, right?
yeah. And I'd say Dune was inspired partially by Olaf Stapledon's Last and First Men, because there's those same themes. The far flung future, Dune takes place in the year 10,400 or whatever, and humans have split off in different evolutionary paths because Mentats aren't quite human. Neither is the Spacing Guild. Neither are these Sardaukar warriors. These are different offshoots. I think Atreides is like a Bene Gesserit hybrid, whatever genetic fucking project, So he's outside on the edge of humanity, probably not even human himself, something beyond that transcends it. So yeah, there's a lot of those same themes in there of that's where we're going, that's what we're gonna do. It's inevitable. How do you prepare for it? And I think that's what these books are trying to do,
You were talking about the cocoon and the emerging as butterflies humanity would be. I've been like trying to learn a little bit about astrology, and there's a lot of people really focusing on the fact that Pluto is going to be entering Aquarius, and that the age of Aquarius, basically, right, and how all the planets are going into the same, and that is what seems to me to be like an indicator of the feminine aspect coming back into the forefront for humanity, right? Bringing in those feminine qualities of nurturing and the self, right?
It
So I
has
believe
to.
that's going to be what's going to be actually bringing about more of those feminine qualities in humanity.
Yeah, the creative aspects, the more feeling aspects, empathetic.
Yeah, people like
I mean,
yourself who are doing that song, right? I believe that that's a fantastic way to nurture yourself, your soul, your human body and your soul, right? And I think
yes,
the connection of the two is something that's extremely important. And I think that times we are going into are going to be helping people to embody these types of things within themselves, and our lives are going to be metamorphosized, right? Because of it.
yes,
And I think that's a positive thing. So if the two, male and female energies, come and be combined, I think that'll
yeah.
be very beneficial.
Yeah, because if you notice about these dystopian futuristic movies like, Blade Runner, there's no families. They're literally cloning people in friggin' bags and dropping them out of the ceiling, you know. And that's because the divorce is still on. The masculine and feminine do not agree to such an extent that men invented these wombs, plastic bags to birth new human beings because they're like, fuck it, I can't figure this marriage thing out, but we need people to do shit. We got all these buildings and spaceships flying around, like, well, what are we going to do? We got to make more and more and more and more people. But they can't get the replicants to breed themselves because, they're weird clone things. So he just has to keep making them and it costs them money. And that's horrible. That's the divorce needs to end. They need to get back. They need to kiss and make up. Anyway,
Exactly.
that's the quest I'm on.
I think it's a noble quest and really interesting stuff. Maybe we'll put it out there one more time. Does anyone else have a question or comment for Neirum? Neirum, thank you so much.
Wait,
go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead, dude myself.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one final point. Like, it's like we were on this idea of like it's this custody battle.
Cosmic
We've
custody
been
battle.
I'm only saying this because it hasn't been committed to a podcast yet, but there was this idea we had a week or two ago. Basically, what the idea was that you had like the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and like they spoke because they were like opposite energies. When they would try to communicate, they would communicate. The other one would understand the communication as the opposite of what they said from their perspective. So the light would say to the dark, "I love you," and the dark would hear, "I hate you," and then the dark would say, "I love you," and the light would hear, "I hate you." And so, like,
Yes.
it's this whole like cosmic story about how they're both in love with each other, and they're both pretty sure they're both certain that there's some communication issue, but they can't figure out how to get past it.
Right.
And the suggestion that Michael made as a solution is what if you didn't use language, and what if you just spoke with your actions, right? So like, you don't say I love you, you take an
Embody it.
apple off
Yeah.
a tree and you give it to them, right?
Yeah. You embody it. You make it real. You don't just sit and think about it, pontificate. You don't like write a poem about it. You get up and you do something about it. You're proactive about it. That's how you open up the future. You can't open up the future with just talk alone. And I think that's what a lot of people think. They can make a YouTube video or shake around on Instagram or whatever and get all these likes and influence points or whatever the hell people want to call it. But they're not happier. It's not like a wholesome experience. It's a degrading experience for everybody, the watchers and the actors.
Yeah, that's all I had.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thanks again, Neirum. And do you want to maybe just leave the audience with a takeaway or a closing thought?
Yeah. Just I think debating is a dead end. I see a lot of people doing that. Don't try to talk to people. Try to openly communicate. Try to listen instead of wait your turn to talk. And I know that seems like a kindergarten lesson, but I think it's a lesson the world needs.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. A lot of the most profound things as I get older, I realize are really that simple. Stuff we learned in childhood is the most important stuff. So I agree. Thank you so much, Neirum. Hopefully we can have you back on the podcast. We just scratched the surface of a few things here today, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh, and I want to thank Basarius for working on this book that I'm really enjoying, Alchemy of the Psyche. He just published it this week, so it's just brand new, hot off the press. You can get a hardcover sent to your house, or you can get an ebook. And I'll give you the link, bro, and all that good stuff.
If you can just throw it in general chat too for anyone listening, check out Alchemy of the Psyche. Belisarius, what was it?
Basarius, Bassereus, I think.
Very cool name. So check out the book. Thanks for introducing us to it, and hopefully we'll build up a series here, getting into some of these other topics in a little bit more detail. But this was great. Thanks again, Neirum.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. So you can find us on the Temple Mount Discord server, and you can find this and all our other podcasts on YouTube and BitChute, Temple Mount Podcast Official. Thanks, everybody, and God bless.